So I kind of one-shotted a Resi tracker. It tracked at 11:59 if something dropped or if something was there, and then at 12:01 it would check again. So that was kind of what I did. Unfortunately, in the morning I got so excited that it worked, and one of the other restaurants didn't work. I was redeploying and whatnot, and I actually botted. They detected a bot and they kicked me off the Resi platform. So that was my intro into development.
If everybody vibe codes their own products, why is it that there are so few of them live in production?
Phil spent months trying to figure out how to use AI to create his own thing. And what he learned is that the biggest unlock is not technology.
All right, so we are here today with Phil Mao. Phil, what do people need to know about you?
Hi, great to be here. I'm a product manager at Early Trade for integrations. My history is engineer turned product manager. I went to UC Santa Barbara for computer science, and my first job was out of there at Procore. Procore IPO'd in 2021, and I was luckily part of the rocket ship unicorn, where I started back in 2012 and ended up building out their developer platform and integration. So anything you see on the API reference docs, the app marketplace, and any integrations that are there for customers, it had built.
How did we get here? To explain this, we have to go back to June, where Phil was just chatting directly with Claude.
I think I was just kind of enjoying life and whatnot, and just, doing my own thing. Like, I'm a big golfer, pickleball, it's summer in LA. So it's just, I can play as much beach volleyball as I want. And I was just focused on other things. And then I think the job search was kind of the aha moment. I'm seeing a lot of people just progressing so much faster in producing apps. They're getting consultancies where they're building apps for people, and they're just getting projects. So, they're finding ways to better their lives, making more money, getting jobs and stuff like that. And so I just felt like I was behind, and, I didn't want to be left behind. And that's kind of when I made the pivot. I guess I did interviews since February when I entered into the job search market. I was looking for a job. AI changed some things. I got to final stages, and then, either got passed up because of something like AI related. Like, we've completely, overhauled due to AI, and our strategy has shifted. So this role has basically left. And so I think that was, after a couple of rejections, I was like, all right, got to get into Claude Code.
So when you started off, things were kind of bumpy, and you were getting kind of stuck and maybe lost in all of the AI stuff. Walk us through that.
I kind of jumped into the deep end, right? Like, right into the fire, just like when you start a new job. I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of knew. I have a bunch of product manager friends. They have a chat. They've been building for the last 6 months, and I kind of felt behind. Meanwhile, I'm trying to look for a job. So I decided, to get a job, I need to jump into Claude Code and figure it out. I love cooking. David knows I love baking cookies. I'm probably at 150 plus versions. And so I was like, all right, let's make a GitHub for recipes. I don't like using Google Docs to track it. I was using Claude Chat for the longest time. And I was like, hey, what happened here? And as we know, early stuff, it can kind of read the context. The middle kind of gets a little hairy. It just forgets. And so I was like, all right, I need to build something. I need to get off of this. Even if this is built for me and nobody else uses it, let's do it. So I kind of jumped into there, and honestly, it worked great initially because you just kind of use natural language, and it kind of one-shotted my application, and that was great. But as I was building, it just kind of kept running to, it built too much. It tried to be too perfect on the initial one shot. And I ended up just fixing things, and I never got to really see the application grow from the initial build. And that was very frustrating. So it's one step forward, but then 10 steps back. So it just wasn't scaling. I didn't really have a great way to manage everything. Everything was just in my head or in the chat.
So Phil, you were just chatting with Claude Chat, and then putting that context into Claude Code, and things were getting a little bit messy. And so you said some friends recommended some different tooling for you.
I was able to kind of spec everything out, but now I had a bunch of stuff that was just in Claude Chat in the context, right? I didn't really have anywhere to put it. I could extract it to Google Docs. And that's when my product friend said, hey, why don't you use Linear? Because I was trying to figure out, are people still using Jira? What's going on in this day and age? And he said Linear is probably where I should put my issue tracking and so on. So when I looked into it, I decided, hey, LinkedIn Premium gave me 3 months free to Notion. So I was like, all right, let's do Notion. I want to do this right. And I want to take everything that I just did for 2 hours and put it into a process. So Notion kept all my, product thinking, the high level specs, the understanding the roadmap, while Linear had all the issues. And so Once I talked to Claude Code or Claude Chat, I was able to develop a workflow and communication layer that used linear and the session prompt in code to basically kick off the coding session. It would basically go read the linear ticket. It would set up pre-flight, look up Supabase and Vercel as it's hooked up, and make sure things were validated and things actually existed instead of hallucinating that, this session could actually kick off. And so from that, I kind of use linear to create the communication layer back and forth that instead of me having to take the prompt from Claude Chat and, bring it to Claude Code and then bring the response back over, linear was my communication layer. It would post comments and talk back and forth. So I could have my conversation in Claude Chat about what was going on when things got finished and use Cowork to do QA on it instead of having to ask Claude Code who developed it, if they did it right. And, this is also out of the need that, GitHub MCP was broken on the chat side. And so it had no way to look at the decisions that we had made and put into the docs decisions repo. We couldn't see why we decided to do things, what actually got uploaded. So linear was our workaround and it actually became the actual correct solution.
What was it like getting Claude Code connected to all these tools?
Simple. I mean, the Supabase is all just the API tokens, throw into in the environment. Linear, same way. Everything just kind of connected either through the MCP plugins library or just through a token. Obviously put guardrails in no production, only read, that kind of stuff. But it really helped with the process and loading up because I think the biggest thing people will find is that with the hallucination, I think the configs thought it was loaded or certain context was loaded, but it really wasn't. So the session command was kind of the game changer.
But there's something else to unlock. The right tooling is vital, but there's something else that separates people who are just vibe coding a tool once versus people who are transforming how they operate. And it wasn't until a long drive that Phil discovered a new way to think about working with AI.
AI can lie to you. We all know it hallucinates. It'll say it built something and it just didn't. So the mindset shift is going from this kind of just, narrative of just, let's just talk, right? Let's just talk it out. Let's build it as we go together, hand in hand, to more of a structured business like we're traditionally used to. And so setting up workflows and understanding that you need to spec things out, it'd be good to kind of have milestones or initiatives and stuff like that. You don't need to go too crazy because that's still running off a Kanban board, basically. But just having better specs to give AI enough guardrails, we'll say, and give them a little autonomy to perform and really just getting me out of the loop at every step to kind of help shepherd the entire process. Now it's kind of, I'm still there, but I'm really there for product decision. And I think that's kind of made the process more enjoyable. I've seen more progress. It's less of fixing bugs and kind of maintenance of infrastructure. I'm actually seeing things that I can go and click around. So that's kind of really what's changed the way I use it on top of the tooling.
You see, it's not just a great set of tools. You need a different way of thinking about working with AI. Build your app like a business and treat AI like a team, not just a bot to chat with.
What did you build? I'm curious to learn more.
So Shikomi, I believe it means prep in Japanese. The normal stuff like recipe something were all taken, obviously, and people are sitting on domain. So incorporated panda and corgis because those are my favorite animals. Here's the recipe, basically the recipe drop down or the list page. Everything was built kind of just from the initial one shot. So there's definitely changes that I have made. I have a full Fable 5, redesign incoming. But for here, you can kind of see we got the nice collapse and so on. I'll go to my chocolate chip cookie recipe, and it's just a standard recipe book, recipe page. It's kind of built a little looking technical because I think I injected too much of GitHub in the prompt, and traditional books, the old recipe books were kind of just very scientific. And so it kind of has this. You're able to do this. I incorporated things such as with Jules chef steps, like the sous vide machine. There's a cook mode, so you can kind of cook and go through the steps and so on. So there's cool things like that. Another view I can show you, you can, my friend told me when I showed him, was like, hey, it's always so frustrating when you're like, hey, add flour. And you're like, how much flour? Because so this cook mode, eventually, these are actually clickable. So as you use the ingredients, you can mark it as used. And so that was the biggest thing. So I already got, I guess, customer demand and feedback. So it was really cool to kind of see the quick, agile turnaround time.
You hinted a little bit at it, but in terms of talking to the market and validating that, sounds like you had a good time there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had time validating it because obviously, you build something impressive to you, something that's near and dear, and I want to show everybody. So hit up friends, hit up people I knew who like to cook, and I already got feedback on I want XYZ, and the one was the cook mode that I'll show in a second, but the friend asking me, hey, like I want to be able to know like this step says add flour, like how much flour. So this one is the best demo of it. And I built it, right after we chatted. We have timers, so like, how long you need to knead the dough. When you go to certain steps, you can, on mobile, you can check off that you've used the ingredients. So it just kind of was nice to see a validation on my app. The biggest one, obviously, the core piece of this is the history or the version control. So it's going to look, somewhat like GitHub. It's not going to be as technical, but you can see right here, you can see the history on the left side. So V7 to V1, you can see like what has changed and what was removed, what was modified, what was added. So that's kind of like imagine I had 150 of these, how would I do it? And then eventually there's going to be the sous chef AI that I want to build, which will have like duplicate detection. So if I've already done it before, it's going to tell me that I've already done it. And I have like notes fields where you can understand what happened with that cook. And I think that's kind of just like, that's the app, and that's the strength of it for someone who's just a home cook who wants to eventually launch a micro bakery to sell the cookies out of their house. Like this is something that, I think I need.
Actually, is it live, by the way, that this application? Can anyone go and like sign up and
Yeah,
start using it?
I mean, anybody can go look at it, and I'll show you one more thing because I think it's worth it. So, I think this is live. You can go in, you can start free, and you can sign up and whatnot. Google Auth is hooked up and so on.
Do you think that you actually had an advantage starting only, let's say, 3 months ago versus those other people? Like maybe they might be
Yes.
doing things an older way, and you got to like catch up to the current way of doing things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that pairing with the mindset of, they're much more of kind of the traditional MBA or just kind of business minded, and I'm much more coming from the software engineer turn product. So I think that paired with, yes, like the tools just have completely evolved. Like you said, it's been like 6 months of honestly when Claude Code or just code has ramped up. Before, I think it was, still a little messy, still a little hard to use. And, with Claude Design coming out and being better over iterations, like I kind of had everything at my fingertips, which they didn't have. And so, I'm not going to say I built a clone of my friend's app, but there's another app we built. Like I basically just kind of did that in the course of I think a month, and he's been working on it for 6 months. But that's also, again, like he came in late. He also has a different kind of mindset and background. And so it was kind of cool to see the comparison between, what me and the other PMs are doing, and also the non-technical guy who's in the chat as well. Like everybody's using Claude Code and everybody's just using it a little differently. And
All right, Phil, thanks so much for walking us through that journey. Very interesting. Lots of things that people can learn there. Where can people find you?
yeah, I mean, you can find me at LinkedIn at Mal Phillip, or you can find me at my site, getshikomi.com. It'll be linked probably in the comments. So hope to, you guys enjoy the product.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Phil, for being on, and thank you for walking us through that journey.
Yeah, thank you.